Notch is widely regarded as one of the most influential game developers of all time, best known as the creator of the game that defined a generation, Minecraft. Before Mojang was founded, Notch had been making games since childhood, dating all the way back since the 80s, and over those years, Notch had built up quite an impressive portfolio, participating in occasional game jams, showing off prototypes, and even collaborating in certain projects. Despite the monumental success of Minecraft, a lot of his early works I feel have been overshadowed or even forgotten, which is why in this video, I want to take a look back at some of Notch's lesser known games, and shine a light on the more obscure projects he worked on before his rise to fame. Breaking the Tower was Notch's submission for the Ludum Dare 12 Game Jam, a simple strategy game where the goal is to build a small society from scratch, gather resources, and eventually, well, break the tower. When you start the game, you are put into this small island and given a group of peons. These peons can gather resources by chopping down trees, picking up rocks, planting crops, or building structures. Now, there are a few types of structures that can be placed. A mason can gather nearby stone and turn into rock. A woodcutter cuts down nearby trees and turns into the wood. A planter plants new trees that can be cut down later, which I don't think really anyone uses. A farmer plants crops, a miller turns crops into food, a guard post is what soldiers and peons stay near, barracks trains peons into soldiers, and a residence building turns 5 pieces of food into a peon. Breaking the Tower was developed before Minecraft, yet it showcases a very similar visual style, hinting at the creative direction Notch would continue to explore. There were reportedly 3 versions of Breaking the Tower. The first was an earlier test build, now considered lost. The second was the version submitted for the competition, and the third was released after the competition ended, featuring the addition of a scoreboard. While the original version is no longer available, the second and third versions are still playable today. So, very interesting stuff. Shambles is a first-person shooter game made in the Unity engine. It was submitted in 2013 for the 7-day FPS Game Jam. In Shambles, you roam around through zombie-ridden streets, firing away at the undead whilst attempting to avoid armed soldiers while sparing innocent civilians. The graphics are fairly reminiscent of games like Duke Nukem 3D or Doom. The guns you have available to you are a pistol, shotgun, and assault rifle, which are actually Nerf guns. I was surprised to know that Shambles was made in Unity since Notch has always programmed his games from the ground up in Java, so I guess that is another little fun fact. Shambles doesn't really have an end goal, it really is just roaming around a rural city shooting away at zombies or soldiers, and the occasional civilian. A very simplistic game made in 7 days, but nevertheless very unique. Tend to the Sea was a cancelled first-person shooter space game made by Notch and Mojang. It was set to be a follow-up to Minecraft, being developed around 2012 and 2013. After Notch had stepped down from Minecraft as lead developer, Notch was working on 3 different projects at this time, but wasn't sure what he wanted to commit to working on first. But on March 13th, Notch announced that he would begin prototyping a space simulator game, inspired by the television show Firefly and the video game Elite. On April Fool's Day, Mojang would launch a satirical website for a space game called Mars Effect. 2 days later, Mojang would reveal there was an actual space sandbox game they were working on called Tend to the Sea. The game had a lot of interesting features that were supposed to be implemented, but unfortunately due to the game's cancellation, a good chunk of these features probably didn't get implemented. The most interesting feature about Tend to the Sea was the in-game computer, the DCPU-16. It was a fully functional emulated 16-bit CPU that could control the entire ship, even allowing you to play games on it. There was a leaked prototype build that Notch had accidentally leaked himself on his private website. The prototype build was just a dark room with a computer inside it. Another build that was released when LcdDem, the artist for Tend to the Sea, released a Unity build showcasing the player customization system. There are several videos on YouTube that showcase the progress Notch had made on Tend to the Sea. 2 physics test videos, an art test video, and a multiplayer test video. There was also a live stream of Notch battling other Mojang employees on board the ship. Although there was a huge amount of development and support for Tend to the Sea, on August 13th on the TF2 livestream, Notch announced that Tend to the Sea was shelved indefinitely. He would elaborate on his blog, The Word of Notch, on the cancellation of the game. What I hadn't considered was that a lot more people cared about my games now. People got incredibly excited, and the pressure of suddenly having people care if the game got made or not started zapping the fun out of the project. I spent a lot of time thinking about if I even wanted to make games anymore. I guess I could just stop talking about what I do, but that doesn't really come all that natural to me. Over time, I kinda just stopped working on it, and then eventually decided to mentally file it as on ice, and try doing some smaller things. Turns out, what I love doing is making games. Not hyping games or trying to sell a lot of copies, I just wanted to experiment and develop and think and tinker and tweak. An unfortunate turn of events for what could have been Mojang's next big game. Something I think a lot of people would have loved to play if a build had been released. But instead of lingering on what could have been, it's just best that we move on. I really don't know where to begin. Cliffhorse is a game about horses and cliffs. Yeah, that's pretty much the game. I don't have any words that can really describe what this game is, but I'm going to show you this video that I found that was uploaded around the same time when Cliffhorse was released.
Do you like cliffs and balls and horses? Do you like Cliffhorse? Try it today. Cliffhorse.com.
Cliffhorse, everyone. Go play it. Legend of the Chambered is a dungeon crawler game released around 2008. It begins in a stone chamber with the word "Welcome" written on the wall. You can find a small side room in the hall with a pile of equipment on the floor with some text above it saying, "Loot." If you explore further down the hallway past the loot room, there is a roofless room with an automatic wooden door to it. Inside are 2 apple trees and 2 monsters. Going right from the first intersection is a room with a pentagonal stone pressure plate in the middle, and 2 stairways behind it, one going up and one going down, with some text on the wall between them saying stairs, although you can't go up or down these stairs. There's also another automatic door inside this room which leads to the woods. There are 5 monsters roaming around in these woods. Some of the trees have apples growing on them that can be picked up by clicking on them, and many of the trees have apples piled underneath. Something interesting to point out is this actually isn't the first Legend of the Chambered game. There was an earlier version released in July of 2001 on Notch's old website, The Intra-Clinic, before it was abandoned. There were multiple versions released, but sadly these versions have not been archived. Hopefully someday someone will miraculously share a build they have saved somewhere on their desktop. Prelude of the Chambered was created for the Ludum Dare 21 Game Jam in August of 2011. You start off in a prison seemingly trapped, but by pressing space you could break through cracked walls to find a ladder. Going up this ladder leads you to the dungeon. If you explore further through the dungeon, you could find the Power Glove, a powerful weapon which lets the player push boulders and fights monsters. After fighting some bats and solving a boulder and pressure plate puzzle, you are led into a room filled with bats and the Golden Bat Boss, which when killed, like the other bosses, drops a key. On your way out, you can also obtain a healing potion and a pistol by rearranging some of the boulders to unlock the other metal doors. Fighting your way back in the prison and by solving another boulder puzzle, you are then led to another ladder which leads you to the island. There is another ladder that takes you down to the Frost Cave. In this cave you can find the skates, which allow you to move on the ice without sliding, allowing you to get to the Golden Eye Boss, which gives you another key. The player can then go back to the island to cross some ice to obtain cutters. On the island there is a fence of bars with ogres that spit acid behind it, which you must cut in order to get the crypt. In the crypt, after fighting your way through a number of ogres, you can find the flippers. The flippers allow you to swim in the water, allowing you to get to the Golden Ogre Boss and obtain another key. Going back to the island, you must swim across some water and trap a ghost in a white box to enter the temple. In here you must lead more ghosts and trap them more boxes in order to open a door. Pushing a boulder through a hallway lets you enter a room with another white box in it. Walking past the white box leads you to a maze made of ghosts, which is where you can find the Golden Ghost Boss. With all 4 keys collected, you must go up back to the island and open up the last door and walk out into a field, thus beating the game. Like Legend of the Chambered, Prelude of the Chambered is one of the many dungeon crawler games Notch has created. As simple as it is, Notch still finds a way to make it engaging, with the little amount of time he had during the competition. Having a variety of items at your disposal, but also needing them to progress, is what I think makes this game so engaging, as well as having trinkets you can find in secret parts of the map. Like I mentioned before, this game was submitted for a Ludum Dare Game Jam, something Notch has participated in many times in the past. Which is what I want to get into this next section of the video, since there's a whole lot of games Notch has submitted in these game jams over the years. Starting off with the J4K Submissions, Notch has submitted many games for the Java 4K game programming contest. The goal of the contest was to make a game within 4 kilobytes in Java. The first time Notch participated in the contest was when he was working on Sonic Racer 4K in January 2005. Basically a Sonic game but made within 4 kilobytes. While making Sonic Racer 4K, Notch would accidentally forget to make a backup of the Racer source code, thus abandoning the idea, which would then mutate into a voxel game engine called Dungeon 4K. A notable submission for the contest is Minicraft 4K, which was submitted in 2009. Like the title suggests, it's a Minecraft demake made within 4 kilobytes. Like the J4K contest, Notch has participated in multiple Ludum Dare game competitions. Breaking the Tower and Prelude of the Chambered were already ones that I've already brought up, but there are 2 notable ones that I haven't mentioned yet. Minicraft was made for the Ludum Dare 22 Game Jam in 2011. It's a 2D top-down action game in the style of a Game Boy game. You roam around in an infinite world and must find resources, fight enemies, and build a home. The objective of this game is to kill the Air Wizard, the final boss of the game. The description of the game says, the goal of the game is to kill the only other sentient being in the world, making sure you'll be alone forever, which was in line with the theme of the competition being alone. Another game submission was Last Minute Christmas Shopping, submitted for the Ludum Dare 28 Game Jam around December 2013. You play as Santa Claus, who has forgotten that tomorrow is Christmas Day. With only a minute to spare, Santa must run through the forest chopping down trees for the elves to make toys for Christmas Day. If you fail to get enough wood until sunrise, you lose, making all children upset. If you get a score over 1,000, you'll secure enough wood till sunrise and beat the game. Last Minute Christmas Chopping serves as a perfect game to play on the holidays. While short, it serves as a fun little game that you can play to compete with friends, seeing who's gotten the highest score. And with that, we've reached the end of this video. Hope you've enjoyed this little deep dive into some of Notch's obscure games, and maybe even found one to try out yourself. This video took a lot longer than I imagined to make, but I'm glad I was able to upload it sooner than later. Thanks for watching, and hope to see you in the next one.